Oh, at the lecture, okay.
you'll have the slides.
Super, thank you.
Most of the other stuff is already on our website because it's the older report and fact sheet.
Excellent. Thank you, Paul.
Sure. Well, you have to hand those out.
You got it.
That's your job, right now.
Oh, here?
Yeah, you have
I
to
was
hand
gonna
those
take them
out
over to
before you
where I
leave.
was going.
I know,
Here you go.
in exchange for your last minute.
Shall I do a short intro
Hi.
of the
Where you-
subject?
You want me to put it down someplace?
Whatever you want.
Hey, how are you?
Hey, how are you?
How are you, Paul?
Yes, you do.
Good, how are you? Happy New Year.
Fine, thank you.
You're looking good.
You too. I hope this year's better than last.
Thanks, everyone, for coming to our Little Water program. If you could be seated now, Paul will begin his presentation soon. This is Paul Robinson. He's Research Director of Southwest Research and Information Center. And so I and a number of other people here, including Paul, belong to the Water Groups, which is a small volunteer organization comprised of groups and individuals who are concerned about the quality of Albuquerque's drinking water. Several years ago, Paul brought our attention to a problem at the Sandia site, Tierras Arroyo. And at that time, we began asking the New Mexico Environment Department to hold a meeting with Sandia National Labs, the public, and the New Mexico Environment Department. So month after month and year after year, we kept poking the New Mexico Environment Department and asking them to hold this meeting. They agreed to hold it, but not when. So finally, they have assigned someone to organize the meeting, and it looks like that meeting is going to come together. So this is the very beginning of thinking about Tierras Arroyo and thinking about how we're going to alert the public to the issue and to this upcoming meeting, where in order to get the attention of Sandia Labs and the New Mexico Environment Department, I would say we'd have to have at least 30 people there. So we're going to have to do a bit of outreach. And we have the option of having an evening meeting, which will help since so many people work during the day. So after Paul gives his presentation, we're going to have a little strategy discussion, and I'm hoping that you'll join us with your ideas about outreach and this issue. Without further ado, here is Paul Robinson, and he will give us a PowerPoint presentation on the problem at the Sandia site, Tierras Arroyo.
Good afternoon. Well, I would sit and snack while talking, but I've been asked to be by the microphone for people to be able to video and use my presentation, so I'm willing to do that. So I've prepared a slide presentation that I can give each of you and would like each of you to have one. If you don't, let me know and I've got some more.
Paul?
Yes. What was that? You did. Speak up, young lady. I didn't know what you were doing. I thought you were just scratching your ear. So, what I had done is prepared a summary of the groundwater contamination that's occurring at 3 sites in the Tierras Arroyo watershed within Sandia Labs portion of Kirtland Air Force Base. Sandia is largely within Kirtland Air Force Base. There's a double fence. And so there are, in this picture on the upper right, is some of the geology that's important to be aware of in the east side of the Albuquerque Basin. This map shows where the sites I want to talk to you about are. And you can see on your map that you've got the Tierras Arroyo on the left side of the figure. And that's west side of the map. So Tierras Arroyo comes from the north side, the upper part of the figure, down into the base, past a series of faults, and there's a tributary that comes up from the south called Arroyo del Coyote. And it comes around the south side of the Manzano base, the 4 hills, which is where the words Tierras Fault Complex are. And it heads east. There's a Lurance Canyon, which is one of the tributaries into Tierras Arroyo. And there's a burn site spring that's listed on this figure. And we're going to talk about the burn site, but this is where it's located, much further east than the main operations at Sandia. And up in the top part of the picture, it says TA1. See that, where it says that?
You have more handouts?
Yes, I do.
Oh, they're right
I asked if everybody had one.
here. Thank you.
So, you see where that is?
Up in the.
Yeah, that's where the Tierras Arroyo groundwater contamination site is. Those are the original tech areas at Sandia.
Where?
I'm not allowed to move because I'm,
Here. Oh, sorry.
yeah.
I need to pick one. Anybody got a yardstick, meter stick?
So that, you have a much better image than the picture, unfortunately. So this is where the burn site is. Lurance Canyon, Arroyo del Coyote joins Tierras Arroyo. These areas here, this is the south end of Eubank Boulevard, where it enters the base. This is where Sandia was born and bred. And this is the Tech Area 3, where there's a mixed waste landfill in the middle. The northeast corner is Tech Area 5. They use a V, so a TAV. So that's where, so it's Tierras Arroyo, the Tierras Arroyo site, Tech Area 5, and the burn site.
And
All are places
And
which
where's the
have,
landfill, the mixed waste landfill?
where it says MWL, right in the middle, right here.
Oh.
So Tech Area 5 is within, is near.
Yeah.
So those are the 3 sites we're going to talk about. So the next figure shows those as well, where you can see Tech Area 5, Tierras Arroyo, groundwater, and the burn site groundwater highlighted on the next slide. So you can see where those are. See burn site on the east side, the right side, Tierras Arroyo groundwater at the south end of the built-up area, and the Tech Area 5 in relation to the mixed waste landfill, chem waste landfill, other sites that people may know something about. And this is a cover of a presentation from work supported by CARD and New Mexico Seas and other organizations from 4 years ago. At the time, we were trying to raise some awareness about these questions. And I've got some of the reports and fact sheets from that period with me, and those are available on the center's website. And what I've done with this presentation is to summarize the 2014 data that Sandia produced about these sites. It was hard to find. So the next slide shows an aerial photograph that locates the Tech Area 5, TAG is the Tierras Arroyo, relative to Kirtland and the mixed waste landfill. And the burn site is around the bottom right edge of the picture. That's the Four Hills inside the loop of fencing, and Lawrence Canyon goes off to the east. And then the next slide is the locations of wells and springs on Sandia and Kirtland Air Force Base. And the only springs that are noted are on the east side. You'll see the Burn Site Spring. Sol Somete Spring is due south of that. And there's a Coyote Springs that's near where Coyote Canyon meets Tierras Arroyo. As all of you know, Sandia is a recent development in the use of this land here. And the lands along the Rio Grande are all ancestral Puebloan lands. And so Burn Site Spring is not the traditional Puebloan name for that location. That is a name based on a Sandia use. And Isleta has cultural resources that are in the base that they have interaction with Kirtland and Sandia over. But when you find a spring, you have found a cultural resource.
What is Burnside name? Is there a native fire there?
There is I'll discuss what the burn site is, but it is a place where activities were conducted that burn things. And the residues from those are what's contaminating groundwater. So I haven't gotten there yet. So these are all activities that are I'm afraid you have the honor of having the black and white copies.
Thank you.
Hi, good to see you. So we're just trying to get some more, people oriented. Okay, the next slide, this shows the estimated water declines in the Albuquerque area through 2002. So the more red the color, the more the water level has declined as Albuquerque has extracted groundwater. And you can see where the tag, I've written in tag, TAG, down just below the bottom of the red part. And that's where the Tierras Arroyo groundwater is, Tierras Arroyo groundwater contamination site. So orange means 80 to 100 feet of water level decline due to city pumping. The reddish color is 120 feet of decline. So most of the groundwater decline has been on the east side of the valley. These are areas where there's been 80 to 100 feet of groundwater decline, which is an important aspect of groundwater. And then the next slide This is looking at the Albuquerque Basin from the side. Like you sliced the basin in half, and you can see this area called the East Heights Fault Zone. And on the left side, you see I-25 and the distance across to the southern Sandia Mountains, and all those vertical lines and offsets. Those are all different faults that have caused portions of the geology to slip into the Rio Grande Rift. This is called a rift valley, and so we're in this area where the let's see, here's you can see where it says I-40 in the middle of that slide, halfway across. Just to the right of that is something called the Eubank Boulevard Fault. So that's gives you an idea of where those faults are compared to Eubank and the front of the Sandias where Wantabeau is. Yeah.
How much groundwater is normally in the water in and around Albuquerque? You're saying 80 feet is missing from some of it.
Water's been drawn down as groundwater's been pumped out.
Yeah, how much groundwater is in the, we don't know?
It's in the millions of acre feet. The city pumps out something like 120,000 and puts back in about 60, and now is re-injecting other things to reduce the amount. So it's a separate story.
How deep is it?
It goes to the antipod. There's the earth is round, so things go all the way down. How deep is the aquifer?
Yes.
Who's asking? Hi. The aquifer is reached at about 400 feet and goes down for thousands of feet, but it becomes increasingly salty. Albuquerque gets most of its groundwater from wells that are about 1,000 feet deep, 80 wells around town that have been pumping the water out. And in this picture, we can see where some of those wells are. So, so that's the background I wanted to give to you. So we have these three, yes?
Could you explain this slide a little bit? I mean, I understand we're in this rift and that this is kind of showing that, but I can't read on here or here. What do these different colors mean? Is that
The different
just
geologic
the
layers.
types of, yeah, layers? So is the water though is throughout all of those, or is it just in one section, or?
Well, the water table is shown on that figure,
See the dotted line?
which is the dotted line that's called water table.
Okay,
So that is about 400 feet down.
okay.
And what do the blue lines mean?
There's some blue squiggles next to vertical lines.
Yeah.
That is geophysical logging, the record of the geophysics for those individual holes. And generally where there's more of a spike, there's more water available.
And all of the real straight lines are faults?
The lines that start at the surface and have a number and end in the bottom with a flat line, those are wells.
Oh.
The things that are called faults have the up and down arrows. Those are faults.
I don't see the other ones.
Right next to the 40, the sign for I-40.
Yeah.
To the left of that, you have one of those lines that goes down. It's got the blue wiggles,
Yeah,
and it ends with a flat line. That is a well.
that's.
The faults go down below to the bottom of the picture. The wells stop above.
Right.
So where's the well? These are wells.
So, talking about the Tierras Arroyo groundwater contamination site, that's the next page. So, trichloroethane and nitrate have been identified as constituents of concerns. I am only quoting Sandia. I'm not thinking myself with this material I'm presenting. This is from the 2014 annual report. This is their description of the site. It's a 900-page report I just found today. ED does not have it linked on the page, on the Sandia homepage. They have quarterly reports that say sampling was done this month. They do not provide the data. So you have to go to the annual monitoring report for Sandia, the 800-page document, find the relevant sections. So those are the two contaminants, trichloroethane and nitrate. TCE, a similar contaminant as found in groundwater at mixed waste landfill, at the lawn dry, dry cleaning, waste disposal plume in the North Valley, common contaminant. And the detection of the two contaminants exceeds EPA maximum contaminant levels. And since August 1996, the maximum TCE has been 10 micrograms per liter, which is parts per billion, and the maximum nitrate has been 49 milligrams per liter. So that exceeds the TCE standard of 5. 10 is larger than 5. And 49 is larger than 10.
Much larger.
So they're exceeding those standards. On the bottom of that is a list of some of the likely sources of the contaminants that have been found at Tierras Arroyo groundwater site. And they are, as you see, they started early, 1948, with the beginning of the lab. Some went shorter periods, longer periods. The estimated volume release in gallons, 1.3 billion. That's the amount of wastewater that came out of Tech Area 1. And until recently, Sandia and Kirtland only used septic tanks. And during the 50s, 40s, 50s, and 60s, they used septic tanks. So that was excellence back then. So that, and you would take your lab vials and rinse them out in the sink. And the sink went to a drain field into the unlined sands of the Middle Rio Grande Valley. And so it wasn't 1.3 billion gallons of contaminants. It was 1.3 billion gallons with contaminants in them. So it's an important difference. Sandia has hundreds of solid waste management units. So each of these sites are identified by their solid waste management unit number. So there's a whole body of information on each of these sites. The Tech Area 2 septic tank, because no estimate is identified, does not mean it was smaller than the Tech Area 1. And same with Tech Area 2 sanitary system. That was an area-wide sanitary system. So there are...
So what does that no estimate identified actually mean then? They just don't have any base data to put any estimate there?
It means that is all that Sandia has been able to come up to say. They've tried, and this is excellence. This is their environmental restoration office doing world-class work like they always do, and They don't know, they don't have any idea. They can't even give you an order of magnitude. So there's no reason to think it was substantively less than the other.
Right.
So large, and there were many other sources of potential contaminants into Tierras Arroyo. At the south end of Eubank, it were a series of landfills for many years. I've only been here for 40 years, and they were already closed then. They had already ceased operating, but they were not closed in terms of preventing infiltration and drainage. Kirtland Base has operations along the Tierras Arroyo. There's a major sewer line along Tierras Arroyo that's broken in the past. So there's lots of potential sources. These are the Sandia locations of high concern as they identify them. So that's one site. Next site is Tech Area 5. And this also has trichloroethene and nitrate identified as constituents of concern. They exceed the same standards. And so and you can see that there's only 50 to 70 million gallons of wastewater containing contaminants that came from these sites. These were liquid waste disposal systems at Tech Area 5. Tech Area 5 is where the reactors are in Sandia. The Annular Core Research Reactor and the Sandia Pulse Reactor, the hot cell where the glove boxes are to handle things, that's all at this Tech Area 5. Moving quickly to Burn site.
Excuse me,
Yeah,
what does the SWMU stand for?
Solid Waste Management Unit. Those are the number that when you want to find more information, you find it under the Solid Waste Management Unit number.
Okay, thank you.
So the burn site, which is east of the Four Hills,
Just a quick question before we move on to something new. So can you remind me what the general health implications are for trichloroethene and nitrates in this?
they're neurotoxins. Nitrate causes blue baby syndrome. And I do have copies of the fact sheet and the report that I'd done for CARD and others 5 years ago, and that has a summary of some of those things if you want more about that.
Okay.
So we have the exceedances of the nitrate standard, again, here at the burn site. And this is a place where perchlorate has been detected in only one monitoring well, and the state has required Sandia to do an extensive perchlorate monitoring program where they've been able to show that they haven't found it except in that one well. So with that summary, I want to now go through in a little greater detail what is going on at those 3 sites from a groundwater standpoint. Yes, please.
You said that New Mexico is requiring Sandia to install new monitoring, more expensive monitoring system for chlorate.
Yes,
When was that talked about? When was that
it's a
discussed?
decade-old
Decade?
story. I'm trying to get through these things rather than pursue the tangents. But there is a lot of material that's been gathered on that site as well as others, and on that contaminant as well as others. There's nothing thin at Sandia, short documents. Yes. Yes, please.
Yes, but just a point of information, Bernalillo County Environmental Director, Dr. Gene Clement, was concerned about nitrites all the way back to the mid-'80s, the early '80s. It would just blow. Nobody paid a lot of attention to him at all, but it was an issue of major concern for him.
Thank you. So the next page, this is all the Sandia groundwater well data. that exceed standards. So the left column is the particular contaminant or analyte, arsenic. Convenient to start. They're working in alphabetical order. They're not discriminating against the organics. And they have the well, they have the exceedance, and the maximum contaminant level. So beryllium, fluoride, the C under nitrate, the CYN wells are at the Burnside Canyon, and the LDS, LWDS, those are at Tech Area 5, and the TJA, those are at Tech Area at Tierras Arroyo. So I'm going to show you where these wells are, and some more about this data. It's just a summary.
Paul,
Yeah.
I see where the column is, it says exceedance, but I do not see where the.
Standard is
where the
listed under the
standard is.
analyte. Analyte arsenic .01
Okay, okay,
milligram, which is 10 parts per billion. Those are the exceedances.
I see. But that's what would be acceptable, that number there, right, under arsenic?
That's the maximum contaminant level allowed.
Okay,
Whether there's any wisdom in allowing any arsenic is a
Right.
different question.
And just another clarification. So with any of these then, there's not a base that says, oh, before this, there was already this amount there, which sometimes agencies say. Is that
These are the 2014 exceedances.
right? Right, I understand.
Just cherry pick it through reams and reams of material.
Okay.
Not a comparison.
Right.
Are there more or less contaminants this year and last year? That's comparing 13, 12,
Right, okay, okay.
going back, finding what a beginning was. Each of these sites have 20 years or more of investigations.
Yeah.
So the 20-year ago would be the baseline, sort of, not
No.
really. So we
No.
don't know what was here before they started measuring.
No, because it wasn't measured. Yeah.
All good questions. Keeping in mind what it is you want me to know or let you know. These are things we want the state to be able to communicate to others. I'm sitting here, telling you what Sandia wrote. I mean, that's not an analysis. That's not developing an independent opinion. That's just starting a review. And so the next page shows the TAVG monitoring wells. Tech Area 5, where are the monitoring wells? So they're around these various sites. And the green blobs are the solid waste management units. Blue is buildings. They aren't identifying which have reactors, which have the hot cells. So then the next figure shows the groundwater surface and shows these three blue lines. And the uppermost, northernmost line is 4921 feet depth to water. And the bottom one is 4919 depth. This is the depth to water. So the groundwater is flowing northerly to where there is a deeper depth to water. Back in the day, Rio Grande groundwater flowed towards the river and towards Isleta. And due to the pumping, the groundwater gradient has been reversed and it flows northerly. These areas where we're talking about are near where the shift has changed. There's a groundwater divide under Mesa del Sol and Sandia where some still goes south, some still goes north. So again, I'm moving very quickly through a lot of things, and I appreciate your questions. I want you to understand what I'm talking about and what's on these things. So, so within this groundwater flow direction to the north, the next slide shows the size of the TCE plume at Tech Area 5. And the scale, my thumb is about 300 feet wide, and the scale's on the right. So we're maybe 600 feet wide, quarter mile long, 1,200 feet, 1,300 feet long. So that is the plume as of October and November of the year before last. There is not yet a report for this year. So it's still good size in terms of area, doesn't reach a lot, and this is TCE in groundwater. Groundwater is 400 feet down. So this is not shallow contamination. This is what's reached all the way down. Who knows what's in the middle? The soil vapor monitoring, sampling for the gases in the dry soil above the groundwater table, that's how you sample for organic vapors. And okay, so next slide, we have the nitrate distribution at Tech Area 5 as of November of 2014. So it has this double barbell sort of shape. The widest areas are where the sources were. And there's quarterly data for all of these sites for a number of years. Okay, so now we'll move, yeah.
Is there any correction for any of this contamination?
We'll get to that. The next slide shows the Tech Area, called the Terrace Arroyo groundwater area. And on the left side are all the monitoring wells, and you can see Eubank Boulevard coming down from the north. So this is just south of Home Depot and the greater Sam's Club, Costco area. It's on Eubank south of Central. And so these are where the original research facilities for Sandia were. And at this place, there is a perched groundwater system that's shown on the right. And the bottom part of the right has this little area that shows where there's some groundwater that collected and is shallower than the deep aquifer. And the upper figure, this gives you an idea of the TAG recharge zone. And it lists sewage lagoons, lawns, wells, leaking pipes. And those are sources that released water, some with contaminants, some without, that went through the upper layer of the aquifer, but got perched on some finer material that doesn't allow water to flow. And that flows towards the east, where there's a mixing zone. So this is one of the detailed aspects of the complexity in that fault picture along the east side. So this, what I've got next is a figure that shows the contamination in the perched zone. Does it still exist? These are only 2014 pictures. Data goes back 20 years, so they're doing something, but it's not quick. And on the lower left, this has the groundwater elevation in purple, dropping as it goes to the right, and the TCE concentration rising. Gets higher as it goes to the right with time. So the more recent figures, except for one blip, were higher than the previous. And the groundwater level's dropping. And this is in the perch zone. So you see why I say that the concentration is rising. The groundwater standard is the green line, so it's above the standard. And so this is for the perched groundwater, TCE, rising at while the groundwater level is dropping. The next figure, this is the regional aquifer. And here, the groundwater elevation is rising. It's purple. That's the groundwater level. The contaminant is the blue. That's the nitrate plus nitrite, NPN. So that is rising slowly. The standard is down there at the bottom on the left at 10. So we're in the 25 and rising. So the contaminant levels are rising. One of the water levels is dropping. The other water level is rising. It's a very complex situation.
I don't see the 10. Where's the 10?
The green line on the
Oh.
bottom left of that figure.
Oh.
So it's well above the standard. So the next figures show the water level change in the wells at Tech Area 5. Tierras Arroyo. And the green one, the one that's YO4, that's the one that has the rising TCE but dropping water level. So you can see the water level dropping, and this is over a 15-year period. So the earliest data for those wells is December 01. The other wells, they go back at least as far as 97. So finding out when the data came from, what's the earliest, this is some indication. So these are the water levels at Tierras Arroyo groundwater. And then the next one is the TJA. This is the water level, this is the well in the Tierras Arroyo groundwater area of concern that has the high nitrate. This one, next slide please. So this has a rising water elevation. Go back to the other slide. The green line at the bottom, that's the one with the TCE. It's dropping in the perch zone, the other one's rising. So there's a complex picture there. So then the last couple of slides talk about the burn site. And last time I talked to Environment Department Hazardous Waste Bureau about getting an update on the corrective measure programs that are initiating these wells and talking about corrective measures, corrective actions. They said they were focusing on this burn site, which is east of the Four Hills, much closer into the Manzanos. So this shows the spring on the right side and water levels down for about a mile west of the spring. And then the next slide, it shows the nitrate plume. What is the nitrate that occurs in that same stretch? So it goes right to left, east to west, like the water level sloping. There's a burn site well, and there were several different kinds of explosive ordnance disposal, other burning materials that were managed there, and generally on the open ground back in the day. So the last couple of slides show the nitrate levels and groundwater elevation and green at the bottom is the contaminant level for the nitrate. So where water level is dropping, nitrate level is rising for that MW9, except at the end, there's a completely different pattern for the MW13, where the nitrate level's rising and the water level staying relatively constant. And the next slide shows more of the water levels as they are evolving. So in this area is east of the Four Hills, in areas which aren't as clearly affected by the drawdown of the main aquifer in the way that Tierras Arroyo and certainly Tech Area 5 are. So this is well into the area where there's half dozen or more intervening faults between here and the other locations. So the last piece I have, let's go to the last slide. So this is what I've written NMED staff to identify as areas of interest. And if they seem appropriate or you want to revise them. We're interested in the progress, current status, and future plans with regard to the monitoring of these Tierras Arroyo, Tech Area 5, and burn site groundwater areas of concern. And what progress has been made on the corrective action programs at these sites. Each of these are part of an administrative framework like everything in groundwater monitoring activities at Sandia. There is a administrative order on consent from 2004 that serves as a framework for most of the corrective action activities that are being done at these sites. The correspondence is not posted by Sandia. When you look for the Sandia or NMED, when you look at the NMED Hazardous Waste Bureau Sandia site, where all the mixed waste landfill, chem waste landfill, Sandia permit material, the material that many of us have talked about a lot, you don't find these other solid waste management unit corrective action chronologies and data. So there is an extension that NMED gave Sandia, a 2-year extension on completing the characterization report for Tech Area 5, issued in December of 2014. That's not posted somewhere. It's identified as a reference in a report. One can't go and see why they still need an extension for these sites that they say are just merely depleting their contaminant concentrations by natural attenuation, but everything is stretched out really long and very difficult to follow. So trying to get the material related to the corrective action investigations is very important. And we're really I've asked them to focus on this Tierras Arroyo region from Kirtland Base up to Sandia. Up into Tierras Arroyo, Tierras Canyon, there's some groundwater contamination sites from different sources, which are excellent stories in themselves. And down below, there's the nitrate plume at the base of Tierras Arroyo that was associated with agricultural chemicals. I'm encouraging the discussion to focus on this middle stretch rather than the others, because there's a lot going on. And then also to identify opportunities for future public involvement. So that's the scope of the discussion that Janet and I have had with Catherine Berger about what we might have in the meetings, and this is a very quick summary of some of the information about those particular contamination sites and what is known about them. Thank you.